so
You
exciting.
did it.
So exciting, guys. So we had this idea last week. I guess it was last week. Somebody posted about like the binge eating issue. And we just thought it would be so great if there could be like a gang of us, basically. They get together and talk about what it's like to eat a bag of chips or a dozen donuts. And the truth is, most people do this. They just don't realize they're binge eating. Wouldn't you guys agree that most people do this kind of thing?
I had a guy tell me one time, which was really interesting, actually. I think it was Brian Sanders from Food Lies in my podcast. He was just like, 70% of Americans are overweight, right? So you can automatically assume that 70% of Americans struggle with some type of disordered eating.
Even if it's just too much sugar, too many carbs, overeating. It doesn't always have to be something that would be like classified as what we're talking about necessarily. But everybody needs to be aware, I feel like, it's my opinion, if you sit down and before you know it, your entire bag of Lay's potato chips is gone, there's something going on. Like, whether it's emotional eating or a binge eating disorder or other, type of eating disorder. And a lot of it comes from carb addiction. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree.
Also, I don't know of a lot of people that are at home binging on broccoli or, even meat, but it's pizza and ice cream and things that are very high in carbs, typically sugar as well, things that are highly palatable and create a huge dopamine spike and just taste so delicious, but they're poison.
Yeah, it's things, a lot of times it's things that have that bliss point, which is intentional. That's what it's called. That's what the big companies call it. So you think it's just a funny thing when they make that slogan, you can't eat just one. They knew what they were doing and they had tested it and they came up with the bliss point, and you should feel, what's the word? You should feel not cheated, but you know what I mean? Like you could feel like you should feel like you've been duped by that. You've been coerced into eating more than just one of those chips, basically, and they're right. Yeah, they're high in fat. They're high in carbs, they're high in calories. A lot of times they're high in sugar, those things. So if you guys have questions about this or you want to share, make sure you put it in the comment box, the question box down at the bottom. There's like a little bubble with a question mark in it. When you put your questions there, we can get to them. So we'll answer any kind of questions about how we overcame this, about the carnivore diet in general, because that's pretty much what we have all used to get to a point where we are not feeling like that anymore. And Jen, I actually have binged on broccoli. I have binged on roasted broccoli with olive oil and salt on it. And I have binged on sauteed kale, actually. So like, wow. I had a serious problem.
Well, when you're roasting it, it gets all like crispy and salty and oily. So I get that, but it's like, it's funny because it's like, it's not the broccoli you were probably wanting. It's the crispy, salty, like oily, fatty, which is like, oh, well, that's what we're eating now minus the plant. So
yes. And it's really hard to overeat ribeye, right? I mean, it's
so hard. It's so hard. You're just like,
your body is like, okay, that's enough.
I can't do it anymore.
Full. Okay, so let's start while we're waiting for some questions to come in. Let's start with, you want to like summarize our stories and then maybe talk about why we're doing this. Does that sound good? Okay. So I've basically been on a diet since I was 12. Can I get an amen? Bought my first diet pills when I was 12. Have always watched what I eat, thought I ate very healthy. But I did always have these times, like when I was in high school, I would not eat lunch because I would like be saving my calories for the day. And then I would stop and get one of those Entenmann's cake. Do you remember those Entenmann's fat-free cakes? Do you remember those? They're in the white box with the blue letters on. They had these fat-free cakes. And I would stop at the store on my way home or on my way to my friend's house after school or after cheerleading practice. And I would get one of those and I would eat the whole thing because it was fat-free. So I thought it was good for me. I could eat the whole thing. And I would save it up all day long. So that's like where my binging kind of probably started, was I thought that was okay. And my husband and I were talking about it earlier today. For lunch, we had like the regular lunch area, and then we also had a snack bar. I went to school in Fort Lauderdale, and we had a snack bar, and I would get like a soft pretzel and a soda every day and an ice cream sandwich. And that was what I would eat for lunch, because that was available to me. And that was what I wanted, was, you know, all the junky carbs. Even then, even at 15, 16, 17, 18, that was what I wanted. And so anyway, you know, I was always kind of in shape. I always exercised. And when I had my first child at 27, I gained 80 pounds because I continued to binge, but I quit punishing myself for it because I was pregnant. You know, so I wasn't going to go out and run 5 miles, and I wasn't going to starve myself for weeks on end to make up for it because I was pregnant. Lost the weight, you know, without too much trouble, had 3 more pregnancies, gained 50, 40, and then 30, managed to get it off. But I've always struggled. I had an eating disorder. I was bulimic for about 20 years. And even once that stopped, the binging didn't stop. I just dealt with it differently. I would starve myself. I would do juice fasts, like a 14-day juice fast to make up for, you know, stuff I ate on vacation. And I know a lot of people do these things. And so that's, you know, part of why we're doing this, was so many people struggle with these kinds of things on a daily basis. And I did. Even 2 years ago, I would buy those giant bags. If you guys saw our promo, you know, my thing was the chocolate popcorn. And I would buy those giant bags from Sam's. I would get 2, and I would eat one on the way home, and I would hide it when I got home, bring the other bag in and share it with my family. Oh, look, I got popcorn. Let's eat it. And I would share it with my family, and act like I had, you know, 10 times the serving that I should have had on my way home. And I couldn't wait. I would start eating it at the store. Like when I would see it, my hands would start to shake. I wanted it so bad. And I don't feel like that anymore, because I eat meat when I'm hungry, and I don't have any trouble with any of that anymore. I don't even think about it. Those things are food to me anymore. This is the healthiest place I have been in as an adult. Well, really, just in general, in my entire life. I feel at peace. I've never been at peace like this before. So that's my story. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay.
So, I mean, honestly, my story is quite similar in many ways. I started dieting when I was about 15, and I was a normal, healthy size, but, you know, when you're 15, you feel like you're fat. So I started restricting my calories a lot. I had no idea what I was doing, and honestly, my mom just let me do whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, some days I'd eat probably just a few hundred calories, and then I would just not be able to control myself. I would just binge on candy and ice cream and chips and all that. And the lunch thing that you said, it reminded me of me. I would go through the lunch line, and I would get this ice cream sandwich that was 2 giant chocolate chip cookies with ice cream in the middle. And I would eat the whole dang thing, and that would be my lunch. Like, what the heck was I thinking? Now, that was a binge day, not a low calorie day.
Yeah.
And it just got worse and worse and worse from high school on. When I was in my 20s, I realized it was a problem when I was going through an ice cream drive-through, and I'd get 2 or 3 things for myself, and I would try to throw up. But luckily I have like the least gag reflex ever, so I could never induce vomiting. Otherwise I would have been a raging bulimic. I probably would have lost all my teeth from all the acid, you know, but I just never could. So I was just binging, never any purging. And then in my 30s, it was worse and worse. I mean, I was just hiding food all the time. I would, you know, I've always had a job, a career. I work in a hospital, and I would just sneak into the break room all the time and like have fistfuls of donuts and sneak them in the bathroom and eat them as fast as I could. I wouldn't even enjoy them. I just wanted to scarf down 3 donuts in the amount of time that people would think I was just going to the bathroom. And I mean, I could go on and on to tell you, like, it would just go all day, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. And every day it was, this is the last time. Tonight's it. Tomorrow I'm starting over. And then you just wake up and do it all over again. And you just live your life so defeated. And I would do this, gain a bunch of weight, but then I would be on track and I would lose a bunch of weight. And so people didn't really take me seriously when I told them I had a problem, because they looked at me and I looked pretty much like I do now. I mean, I have a couple photos where I was heavier, but even my friends now, they see those and they're like, I don't really remember you looking like that, because it would be just brief. But it would also be really just brief when I would be at my thinnest. And so, you know, I talked to doctors and counselors about it, and it's like nobody really took me seriously and kind of made me feel like maybe I was crazy. I didn't really actually have a problem, but definitely I did. And I can absolutely tell now that I don't have that problem anymore. You know, sometimes the absence of the problem is the thing that shows you that you had a problem.
Yeah.
That's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Awesome. Courtney?
Me or Alex? Me. Okay. I've just always had like a wonky relationship with food, yo-yo dieting. I didn't realize a lot of these things till coming to carnivore. And honestly, Serena, hearing you say like carb addiction, sugar addiction, abstaining from things and not moderating, I'm like, damn, like that's me. I guess I just always thought of like, oh, it's your yo-yo dieting. You eat all the foods and you don't, and you restrict and you diet. Like I just thought that was normal. And also like a lot came to my realization when I was on Alex's podcast and she was asking me these questions. I'm like, oh shit. Like, and then I was like sharing things that I've never even like said out loud before, you know, just like hiding food and, you know, I think that's a big thing. I think when people think of binge eating, you're thinking of like you're eating this whole buffet, which it can look like that for some people, but sometimes it's just eating more than you need or want of crappy foods that don't make you feel good, like also in secrecy. So I think, you know, that was more for me. And it's funny because it's like, it's not a secret, Courtney. Everyone can see that you're almost 200 pounds, you know? So it was just like such a weird relationship with food. And I was keto on and off for like 6 or 7 years, and I would gain the weight and lose it. There would be cheat nights and fat bombs and all that. And it just never worked for me.
Yeah. And
my rock bottom was before I found carnivore, I tried to intuitively eat for 4 months. I fell into all those like anti-diet culture coaches and stuff. I'm like, no foods are bad. Everything's on the table. Well, yeah, everything was on the freaking table. Like
it's on the table. That's the problem.
I gained 40 pounds in 4 months. Wow. And finally, like, I was always sharing my social media journey and my food and everything. So I went online. I remember saying in my stories, like, I got like an issue. I'm like, this isn't working. I'm like addicted to food, blah, 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 blah. And that's actually how I found I already was friends with her, but my coach that I use now for like all things inner child, human design, even business, like everything. But we started because she's like, I think I can help you like with your food issues. And so we dove into all the inner child work and all that. And I'm forever grateful for her because I feel like that also made me have an open mind towards carnivore, because I thought all you guys were nuts when I first, you know, was starting to watch all these things. But I mean, it's changed my life. And we can probably get into this later, but what bugs me the most is when people say I traded one eating disorder for another, because I feel the complete opposite. I feel the most mental freedom I have ever felt. And I can be around a plate of donuts with no desire to have them. Whereas before, it's like I would either eat them all or I would stare at them and try not to and then think about them all day. Like it was always, I like to say, like the mental gymnastics you go through is like insane. So I finally like, ta-da, I'm free and I feel good.
That's awesome. Alex, you.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. So mine started as a child. My parents got a divorce when I was young, and I was probably about 3. And I remember, you know, some of my earliest memories are me hiding food in my dresser drawers or underneath my pillows or, you know, anywhere in my bedroom that I could possibly go back and get it later. And I think one of the turning points for me was when I started to gain a lot of weight as a child. My dad eventually started to notice and put me on, you know, a diet, right? This was back when PC was like still the thing. It was like, you know, pretty much like I need help with eating.com, you know, and like he ordered this like booklet and it came in the mail and we had to like go through it and it had all these recipes. And so I remember even then being like, because we would make this low calorie pizza and my sister would eat like half of it.
Doesn't a
and I would get
pizza just sound horrible right now?
Horrible. Awful. And so I would like sneak back in and eat the leftover pizza, you know, whenever I could and stuff like that. So as I got older, it sort of excelled. You know, my mom started to notice I was gaining weight as well. And, you know, she got me Phenerman whenever I was a kid. You know, I think I was in 7th grade. And, you know, but both parents were like, they didn't know what to do. You know, here I am. I'm 6'1" I'm without like, you know, anything else. So I was a big kid in general. So then you add, you know, 30 pounds overweight, and I looked like this monster, you know, of a child. And so my parents had no idea what to do. And so it looked like, you know, the older I got, the more shameful I would feel for eating, because then diet culture became so ingrained in who I was. And, you know, my mom wanted me to lose weight. My dad wanted me to lose weight. And even if it was for the sake of health, in the moment, I didn't know that. So as I got through high school, I finally got made fun of for being fat. And I lost a whole lot of weight, and, you know, pretty much ate chicken and broccoli and starved myself. And that's whenever things really took a turn for the worst. So I never really got big again, but I was sort of in the same boat as you, where it was like, you know, you don't have an eating disorder, you know? And it's like, well, my partner worked nights, and when she's not there, I would cook two batches of brownies and eat all of them in one sitting. You know, like I would starve myself all day long just to have a box of cereal whenever I, you know, like whenever I had like time and space by myself.
And hide the trash.
And yeah, and hide the trash. Or, you know, and I know this is like a super classic, and like, you know, I would say like, if you throw something away because you feel like you shouldn't eat it, and then you go back to the trash can, you get it out, you're like, hey, this did not touch anything, I'm good. You know, like it's little stuff like that. And I never knew, even as a child, that thinking about food was not normal, right? So like now that I eat this way, and like, you know, I weave back and forth between carnivore and animal based. And so just for everyone listening, it is possible to reintroduce carbs into your life after a sugar addiction. I do think it takes a lot of self-awareness, and you have to be super on top of it, and, you know your pattern, and be, you know, relatively disciplined, because that's where like habits meet addiction, right? So like if I go watch Netflix with my partner and I'm like, oh, I need to eat, I need to binge, you know, you have to be aware enough to be like, that's not what I need to do. That's an old habit, and I can put that to bed now. But with that being said, I literally do not think about food. Like, unless it is my next meal, you know, unless I am hungry, I do not ever think about
sometimes,
food.
But only because I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? But not like I'm going to go in the kitchen and hide and eat 20 cupcakes like I've done in the past. But 2 things struck me about your story, and then we have questions. First of all, I didn't know you were 6'1". So that was the first thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is hiding the wrappers in the trash. Guys, if you are eating a bunch of stuff when nobody's home or nobody's looking, and you're hiding the wrappers in the trash, that's a problem. And let that be your wake-up call to do something about it. If it's been 20 years, if it's been 1 year, if it's been 2 days that you started doing that because you're binging, let this be your wake-up call, because hiding the wrappers in the trash can be your first clue that you have a problem and you're worried other people are going to see it. The weekend I became a carnivore, I ate 20 cupcakes in 36 hours. That was my rock bottom. And I was like, and I was hiding in the kitchen. It was my birthday weekend. My kids had made me some gluten-free cupcakes, and I literally would walk through the kitchen if nobody was looking, and I would take one and I would go stand in the corner and I would eat it. And I ate 20 cupcakes in 36 hours. So if you ever do that, you have a problem. Okay. Frank's Carnivore Run says, I just wanted to say thank you, ladies, for all your help and support, especially Jen. She's been like a personal coach throughout my journey. Aw.
That's very sweet.
Yes, very, very sweet. Okay, let's see. Naomi says, I've wanted to start carnivore for so long. I eat fatty meat, and then not long after, my body craves sugar. It's so confusing. What's the best way to start carnivore? I'm overweight, insulin resistant, and heart disease runs high in my family. It's time, Naomi. What do you?
Of course you eat a fatty meal and your body craves sugar. There's so many reasons for that. One is that it's a habit. 2 is that the bugs in your microbiome, the ones that eat the carbs and sugar, that's what they live off. As they start to die off, they make you crave more of that because they don't want to die off. You know, they want to take over your gut. And so they literally hijack your taste buds. They're going to make meat and healthy foods not taste as good, and they're going to make you crave sugar, and you're truly going to believe that you might die if you don't get sugar. You have to push through that. You have to. After about a month, that will get better, but you've got to just keep eating the fatty meals and not giving into those cravings. Every time you give in, you're just starting over, and it's just getting a little bit more of an ingrained habit, and it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah. And you're not going to die. You're not going to die. So what you have to do is you have to think in that moment, how many times have I done this to myself? How many times have I said, tomorrow's the day, I'm not going to do this anymore? Aren't you sick and tired of getting to the end of the day and thinking, great, now I have to start over again tomorrow? Get to the end of the day and be like, wow, I did it today. Look at what I did. Now I got to do it again tomorrow, you know? And for me, it was the resolve. It was waking up that Monday morning, barely being able to run that morning because I had no energy, because I felt so horrible after eating that much sugar. In 2 days, I felt horrible. And it was waking up that Monday morning and I was like, that's it. I'm not going to do this anymore. But normally for me, when I say that, I do it again 2 or 3 days later. And this time was different. And you know why? It's the beef, people. It's the beef. The beef and the fat do so much for your brain that it can fix you, which I know sounds insane if you've been struggling for me, it's like 36, 37, almost 38 years for me that I was sick like that I was sick and always on a diet. And if it can fix me, it can fix you.
I just want to add a few things to that. I will say, like, you just got to get through it. Get through the first couple weeks because it gets so much easier. Like, I'm not going to lie, once in a while, like, I'll be done with dinner and like a passing thought goes by, like, ooh, a piece of chocolate or just something kind of like out of habit or whatever, but it literally just passes right by. It doesn't like linger like it used to. But I will say, like, in the moment, if you are having a sugar craving, you can take like a pinch of salt, put it on your tongue, or drink some salt water. Okay, not a lot. You will run to the bathroom. Or have a bite of salty butter. So little things, or even like a bubbly water. Because sometimes I feel like it's more like your mouth wants it. Your mouth is hungry. So that can help. And a whole other thing would be, you know, like, we're getting our joy from those sweet foods. So now we need to figure out other ways to like get those dopamine hits. So distract yourself, find other like hobbies, but it gets easier. I promise it gets easier. Get through the first few weeks. After I can't remember like when it felt easy to me because I was doing some fruit in the beginning, but I feel like it can happen pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think too, everything all of you have said, absolutely. But I think building awareness, and like, you'll hear me say this again and again and again and again, because habits are so easy to fall back into if you're just not paying attention, right? So like, Courtney, for you, it's like you have that thought of chocolate, and then all of a sudden, if you're not self-aware enough to know, like, oh, this could really send me down a rabbit hole right now, then you're like, oh, well, I could just eat the chocolate. I could just eat the chocolate and I could just go to the gym tomorrow. And then, I mean, especially people who are in recovery, it can start just like that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like,
that's all it takes.
Yeah. It's like telling an alcoholic, people don't think this, but it's like telling an alcoholic or a drug addict just to have a little hit. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
And it is this
microdose it away.
Yeah. It is the same way with food. So yesterday I got my, we have some more questions, so I'll hurry. And then make sure you put your questions in the question box so we can find them easier, guys. Because I know there were some questions in the chat, but it's easier if we get them from the question box. But I got my email yesterday from the Public Health Coalition. Nina, that wrote The Big Fat Surprise, runs a nonprofit organization, and I'm on their mailing list. And the email yesterday said that, that the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee is considering looking at obesity, carb addiction, and things like that as an addiction. And that the U.S. Dietary Guidelines specifically say that those are the guidelines for healthy people, considering 70% of Americans, 70% are not healthy. That means that those guidelines do not apply to most people, which I think is so exciting. So what that would mean if they change the guidelines for the people that are obese or have those other like metabolic issues and things like that, and diabetes, if they change those guidelines, it means all the places where we're so upset that they continue to serve this garbage, schools, hospitals, military, VA hospitals, all of those things will have to change their guidelines according to the metabolic health of the person that they are treating, which I just think is so amazing. I mean, that right there is like an answered prayer, because, you know, they feed hospital patients, you know, I mean, cancer patients cookies and juice boxes, you know, and stuff like that when they're kids and they're, you know, in the cancer ward. I have a friend whose son has leukemia, and they missed dinner when they were admitting him to the hospital recently, and they brought him some Chips Ahoy cookies. He's got leukemia, you know, like, so that would change some of that stuff, which I just think is amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And nursing homes
and
too.
Yeah, and nursing homes, all of those places would have to change what they do, you know, as far as diet goes. And I just think that's amazing. I mean, that's what we need. We need some, you know, we need things to reform in that way. Okay. Besides refined sugar and carbs, what did you cut out that helped with not binging?
I would say anything sweet. Like, I feel like if you're still struggling with cravings and you're having stevia or anything, I feel like people use those because they're like, oh, it's low carb or whatever, keto, you know, it's not real sugar, but that can still drag on cravings. So even like if you're chewing gum and it has a sweet flavor or some sort of thing. So I would just look at everything you're eating. If you're still having these cravings, make sure that there's nothing in your diet that has any sort of sweet flavor at all.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I've also just found that there are certain carnivore foods that I have less control around, like beef jerky, for example, when I make it. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going back and back and back for more beef jerky. So while it's a healthy choice and I still like to have it sometimes, it's just not something I can keep in the house a lot anymore. And there are other things like that too, like bacon and pork rinds. You just have to be really aware of your behavior. And I want to talk about this a little bit later, but just my own behavior sometimes is a little questionable. And so being aware of that is so important, even if you're not cheating with non-carnivore foods.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, I had gone like 6 months of carnivore without cravings and stuff before I realized that I wasn't going backwards. And it was the first time I've ever done something for 6 months without cheating. Like, I was shocked when I realized it. And then I saw somebody post about the difference between a moderator and an abstainer. And it's really important to know that. And I think once you know that, some people can be resolved in that moment. And once I realized the difference between an abstainer and a moderator, I was like, oh, no wonder I can't do it. This is a thing. This is a real thing. And other people have this problem too. And like that, the light bulb went off. And I was like, well, that's why. That's why I'm doing so much better, because I'm abstaining. And so keep that in mind if this is something that you're considering doing. If you're an abstainer, you absolutely can't just have a little bit. That'll keep those cravings coming for sure, and possibly cause binges and stuff like that. So you have to be resolved.
Yeah, don't have like cheat nights or anything. Like for me, if I were to have a cheat night, that would be a slippery slope, and I would ruin all the hard work I did. Like, there's a reason why I also don't drink alcohol, because I cannot moderate myself around that. And I'm the same way with sugar. So it's okay to abstain from things that don't serve you well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree 100%. I think in my years of doing this, as far as like bodybuilding and, you know, going through cycles and phases of weight loss and weight gain intentionally.
Yeah.
I have come to a really beautiful place where I used to be an abstainer, but I'm now a moderator, right? So like I can have a banana and not feel like I'm going to eat 12 of them, you know, but I think it's because I've been able to intentionally go through these cycles and phases and not unexpectedly gain 20 pounds, but actually do it on purpose. Yeah. And then lose the same 20 pounds and then continue to build a physique that I'm proud of, you know, at the end of the day. But that, you know, there are a lot of, I think, like habitual things that go around binging as well. Like, even if I do have something that's not carnivore or that's not animal based, you know, I can moderate it, but that's not true for some people. Right. Like, and that's kind of what we're saying. But I do think that, you know, eventually, like if you're listening to this thinking there's no hope that you're ever going to have any fruit anymore.
Right.
And, you know, I definitely think there is a time and a place and that you can eventually get there, but you have to start as an abstainer.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, there's a question. Wait, sorry, Jen, what were you going to say? Were you going to say?
I was going to say what you're going to say.
Okay, there's a couple of different comments. Somebody says she feels discouraged with thinking that she's an abstainer. Is that the one, Jen?
Oh, no, it was someone asking us to explain what an abstainer and a moderator is. So that would be helpful, just real quick to gloss over that.
Okay, so she says she feels discouraged with thinking that she's an abstainer. And I think you can't look at it like that. You have to look at it like Alex just said. Maybe there's a chance you'll be able to add those things back in. But even if you can't, you're going to feel so much better and feel empowered and encouraged that it's you probably will realize that it's not necessary. Like I don't now, and I hate to say this because it's not really true. I don't look to food for pleasure. I want that to be true, but it's really not because I mean it is, but it's not because these are amazing foods that we're eating, right? So I do eat food for pleasure. Just different foods. Like I look forward to that steak, you know, I look forward to all of those foods. So while I'm not eating the other foods I used to eat for pleasure foods, I do eat these foods and get lots and lots of pleasure out of it. So there is a difference. But don't be discouraged that, you know, that you're an abstainer. Grow with that knowledge and say, so here's what I can do. I mean, honestly, that's what clicked for me. So a moderator, do you want to say what a moderator standard is, Jen?
Sure. So an abstainer is a person who is kind of like all or nothing. This is what I'm like. If I have one bite of chocolate, I'm going to have 1,000,000 bites of chocolate. There is no one. There is all the chocolate in the world or there is no chocolate. So I just have to do no chocolate. Whereas a moderator, which Alex has become one, is a person who can sort of rationally think about things like that. You can have a little taste of chocolate and know there's all the chocolate in the world. I could have more chocolate tomorrow or next week or whatever, and they can stop at one little piece and it's not ruling their brain for the rest of the day. So a moderator can have a little bit of something. An abstainer can have none or way too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And it's not idiosyncratic either. You know, everybody's very different. I just saw a comment from Pillar Fit Vegas, and you know, there are certain things that I abstain from, right? Because they are a slippery slope. But then like things like fruit, I can moderate 1,000,000%, right? Like to me, like food is, and you know, even worrying about being an abstainer, eventually this unhealthy attachment that you have to food will go away, right? And then all food just becomes nourishment, even if we do find pleasure in the food. So it's not like I'm looking at a banana now that I'm a moderator and thinking, oh, I just can't live without this banana and I have to have it right now. You know, those thoughts and feelings go completely away and you won't even ever, it's like doing carnivore, you won't even ever think about it. Like that's like the point I like to drive home is like you will not think about it any longer.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. And become that thing. Don't say, well, I'm going to start tomorrow or it's okay, I'll take the weekend off. Become that thing. I am a carnivore. I'm not on the carnivore diet. I am a carnivore and those things literally aren't food to me anymore. We left the house today to go help my daughter paint. We knew we were going to be gone all day. I took the air fryer and some ground beef with me and I made some meat bars while we were there. Like that's who I am now, you know? Was it extremely convenient? No. Could I have run to, you know, McDonald's and gotten some burger patties? I could have, but I didn't want to have to leave the house. I wanted it to be easy. So think like that. Like, how can you make this doable for you? Yeah. How long before seeing weight loss on carnivore and is portion control necessary?
I'm going to defer that because I haven't really lost much weight as a carnivore. It's like my body wants to weigh this much.
Yeah. Forever.
I would say
Forever.
that something I definitely think calories count. You cannot just eat 4,000 calories and expect to lose weight. I mean, I think that there are certain ratios that you can play around with as a carnivore that will have a better thermodynamic effect that you will be able to lose more weight on, like an 80-20 split. 80% fat, 20% protein. So I do think there are some that are more effective at weight loss than others, but you still can't pass that calorie threshold. There still is a threshold. It's completely different for every person. Like my maintenance calories are 3,500. Your maintenance calories are going to be very, very different. I'm also extremely active. I lift a ton of weights. I stretch. I move all the time. But, there are calorie thresholds that are actually 2,000 calories. And especially if you're in a metabolically unhealthy conditioning, you have to keep your calories high enough to repair your metabolism, right? To reteach yourself how to utilize energy properly. But also you have to be mindful that, excess calories will lead to weight gain, no matter if it comes from just fat and protein.
Yeah. And for me, I gained 18 pounds in the beginning. How, you ask? By not eating enough. So calories matter on both ends. And if people say that's ridiculous, how did that happen? I've talked to multiple doctors about it, and it is absolutely a thing. I was fasting every other day, eating 2 hamburger patties basically on my eating day. And my body was just in such a crisis mode for months. For 8 months, my body was in crisis mode. And I just kept putting on weight. Pound after pound, I just kept putting on weight. And so it can go either way with the calories. You definitely can be eating too many, and you definitely could be eating not enough. So not everybody has to count on the carnivore diet, but like Alex said, there are people who can eat 3,500 calories a day and lose weight. Typically, that's going to be a really high fat, is what I have found. The higher my fat, it's really weird. The higher my fat, the more I can eat. It's just metabolically, that's what works for me. So I can get away with more calories if those extra calories come from fat. But it's better if it's beef fat instead of butter. So it's really like a science experiment. We kind of have to mix it up ourselves and kind of figure out what makes us feel best. But you have to get to a baseline first. You have to have been a carnivore for a while first without cheating, so your body knows what's going on. And that's really going to help you kind of figure out what to do. What about you?
I lost right away, but I was also coming off of a super high carb diet. But I will say real quick, like regarding like macros and portions, I don't think it's a bad idea to maybe get a visual of what this looks like. I tracked a little bit in the beginning, and I was tracking at like 1,800 calories. And it was just nice to see, like, I feel like if you're coming from a place of under eating, that maybe this gives you the permission to see like, oh, I'm allowed to eat all this. Yes. And it's not going to like make me be fat. Or if you're coming from a place of overeating and maybe your hunger cues are going to take a while to get sorted out, it's good to get a visual and be like, okay, like this is approximately what I should be eating. And, all the days are going to be different, but maybe get an eyeball just so you just know, because I had no idea, like, okay, how much should I be eating in the beginning? And for me, it was like 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of meat a day. And that kind of like sounds like a lot. So it was good to know like, hey, this is my range, and then just go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And guys, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the question box. We're going to wrap it up in about 10 minutes. So make sure you get those questions in, okay? As someone who restricts and binges regularly, would you recommend 30 days or something of strict carnivore to help with habits and reset the cravings? Absolutely. What do you guys think?
100%. And I feel like the words matter here. I would absolutely recommend 30 days of strict carnivore, but by strict carnivore, I mean very open carnivore. Don't say, oh, I'm going to go lion diet. I'm only going to eat beef for 30 days. That's so hard if you're coming off of binging. I did that and I failed miserably. So allow yourself to have any animal food that sounds good, that you can afford. Don't worry about all the details that people say it has to be this and it has to be this and da-da-da. No, if it's an animal product and it doesn't have added sugar, basically have it. But only have that for 30 days. And then after that, your cravings will be so much more manageable, and then you can make reasonable decisions about what to do next.
Yeah. Keep in mind real quick that you don't have to just eat, like Jen just said, you don't do line or anything like that, but just don't restrict yourself in the animal foods. Think about, like people will say it's so restrictive. Man, there are so many different animal foods out there. There are so many different meats we can eat, from lobster and shrimp, things we wouldn't normally eat because, the lobster or the shrimp is going to have like all this cream sauce on it. Have the cream sauce. Just make it at home. Make sure it doesn't have sugar in it. There are some delectable, amazing foods that you have probably restricted yourself on for the last 30 years that your body wants. Eat them. Eat all of the animal products for 30 days.
Yeah, I was gonna add, what was I gonna say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I totally, oh, I would just be aware of dairy. I think, especially in the beginning, like, I think it's great to have, if you like tolerate it, it might make things feel a little bit more sustainable. Yeah. Just going to strict meat might be a little tough, but just be aware, because I did dairy for about like 5 months, like having a lot. And then I realized like, it kind of is a trigger for me to maybe like, I could probably go easily binge on a quart of cream, and it messes with my hunger cues. So I would just kind of pay attention. I could not be hungry and go eat a block of cheese. No issue if I'm not really like paying attention, you know? So I would just, I don't do that with steak. If I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat steak, but I could eat cheese. So I would pay attention to dairy, but it can be a good tool, at least to get you going in the beginning, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think 30 days minimum sticking to it would be, I know it's hard to picture, but the amount of progress that you would see in 30 days would be absolutely insane.
Yeah, it would be, the most progress you've ever seen with any kind of plan in your whole life, probably.
Yeah. And you know, I know I keep saying this, but I really drive this home on the podcast too. But like, it's like a before and after of like, you know, carnivore, like before carnivore, after carnivore, you will have a like intense experience of just like, wow, I have never felt this good in my life.
Yeah.
Like I still have a coach who's a traditional, you know, she loves carbs, wants me to eat a lot of carbs. And even, you know, I don't think that she understands how good it feels to be on a low or zero carb diet.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, even this 30 days, it will change your life forever.
Yeah. And
you can't go back.
Yeah. Now, some people do, but they're always sorry and they're always wishing they could come back to carnivore, especially if they've gone back to like junk diet. You'll hear people say, oh, I wish I could get back onto it. But it's that addiction that brought them away from it, and it's got a hold on them. There's nothing like the feeling of being free from that. Seriously. I was animal-based for 8 months, gained like 15 pounds, and I cut out dairy, fruit, and honey 10 days ago. I'm down 11 pounds without even trying, only eating beef and butter. Mind blown. Yeah. Yay. That's awesome.
That's awesome. And that was my experience when I gave up dairy for a month. I did the BBBE with chicken wings. I lost 8 pounds. In that whole month it took me to do that. But I think for a lot of us, either we're like over consuming it or it just causes inflammation. You know, a lot of us don't realize like how it affects us, maybe our skin, mucus, holding on to like water weight. I don't know. So that's awesome. I know we've talked in the DM, so I'm just excited for you.
Awesome. Okay. What have you seen or heard of being healed on a carnivore diet? We just don't have enough time.
What have we not seen?
Absolutely. That's it. Seriously. What have we not? I mean,
what all we could like, what one thing that we've healed individually on carnivore? Just so
psoriasis. Terrible psoriasis.
It's hard to pick one. I would say like mental health issues would be the big one.
Hypothyroidism for me would be a huge one.
Yeah, for me it would be mostly the mental thing, like Courtney, because the eating disorder thing is no joke. Carnivore gave me my life back. It saved me. I have no doubt in my mind. I still go to places and get this wave of emotion from like theme parks and stuff, from having been there before and what it was like for me before, with the stress and the anxiety. My hands would be shaking trying to figure out what I was going to eat and how I was going to handle it and how I was going to deal with it. I just don't even care anymore. Like if I have to sit there and not eat because we're at a restaurant that doesn't work for me, that's fine. I'm not hungry anyway. You know, like, I mean, the peace of mind that I have, you just can't beat. But we have seen people with high cholesterol. Karen healed lots of joint pain. But we've seen people with high cholesterol have their cholesterol actually go down, blood pressure issues resolved, diabetes, MS, people, you know, their cancer, their tumors shrink. I mean, you name it, we have seen people heal from it with carnivore, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's our species appropriate diet. So it's really amazing. It's like if you put the wrong fuel in your car, it doesn't work, right? If you put the wrong fuel in your body, guess what? It doesn't work. And it might be fine for a while. It might be fine until you're 40 or 50 or 30, even for some people. But at some point, something's going to break. And chances are it's the fuel you've been giving it, honestly. Are you guys familiar with
H. pylori?
Yeah, thank you. H. pylori and stomach acid. Are you? Because I'm not.
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
Yes. So basically, when you're eating the wrong foods and your stomach is a wreck and it just cannot get its acid balance right, you typically get prescribed a bunch of medications that decrease your stomach acid. So then your digestion of things, especially meat, gets worse and worse and worse. And you keep taking more and more of the pills or eating a ton of Tums or whatever. And it's just this cyclical thing that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So people ask me about this a fair amount as a carnivore. And so what I suggest is taking a digestive enzyme or something like ox bile at the beginning of the time as a carnivore, because you are going to need help digesting those meats. Your stomach is no environment for that right now. But as you get used to it, your body's going to become more efficient. It's going to produce the amount of stomach acid that it needs. It's supposed to be very acidic, and then you're not going to need those things any longer. But maybe plan on it for a few months.
Okay. Somebody's asking in the comments real quick how we feel about spices. They have kids that are 5 and 7 so far they're doing really well. You know what? If you tolerate spices, it's not a big deal. A lot of people use spices. I know several people that like that slap your mama seasoning, and it has all kinds of spices in it. So you just kind of have to not eat it and then eat it and see how you feel.
Yeah.
So this is for Alex. Does the fruit spike your glucose or make you crave sugar?
No, not for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to try to speed through some of these now because we got to wrap it up soon. Did your taste buds change after being carnivore for a while? Yes.
Yes, they come alive. I've said this before, like if you hear a smoker say once they stop smoking, like their taste buds came alive and everything tastes different. And 100%. I mean, 9 months ago, drink heavy cream and it's just whatever. Now I can taste it. Is so sweet to me.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yes, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Were your family and friends supportive of your carnivore choices?
I am quite the influencer in real life too. Just
Awesome.
Quite a few friends and family have gone carnivore after watching my journey without me pushing it or saying a word, just living my best life. And they're like, damn, like I want that.
Yeah, my dad's down 20 pounds and is full carnivore now for 6 weeks.
Nice.
And he's thriving. Stopped taking his cholesterol medication because I told him to stop. And I mean, I didn't tell him, you know, he kind of started all of this on his own. And my sister also used to have really bad acne. And we were setting in a doctor's appointment last year at the end of the year and talking about like the doctor was like, we cannot give you any more creams for your face. Like we've tried everything. She was on medication for it. And so I sort of like talked to her about even animal-based at the time, because she eats more animal-based, you know, heavy protein, but also has some fruit and stuff. And like her skin is completely cleared up, you know? So, I mean, yeah, it's, you don't have to talk about it for people to do it. Like you just have to show up. Yeah. Like family members have like come in and they're like, oh my gosh, your skin. And I'm like, yeah.
Beef. That's what I say. When people say that to me, I say it's the beef. But so there's another thing to add to your list of things that people have healed is acne. And then one more question and we'll wrap it up. Brandon is asking, do any of you follow the circadian rhythm or use blue light blockers? I don't do either, but I would like to we're just too busy in life with our kids being out late and stuff with basketball and things like that. But I would like to get some blue light blockers. I don't have those yet. Jen, you have?
I don't have the glasses, but I do have a light bulb that I've been using at night when reading, and that's really helped me to kind of get in that mood of sleep and sort of wind down, and it makes me really tired. It's just kind of like a yellow light bulb that cuts out the blue light.
Right.
I recommend that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do put my phone in that mode in the evening. My phone goes into that mode in the evening where it doesn't use the blue light. What were you going to say, Alex?
Oh, no, I absolutely use blue light blockers. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm on my computer all the time during the day. So,
yeah,
you know, especially if I'm working late or something, I usually always have them on.
That's awesome. What about you, Courtney?
Yeah, they sit next to my bed. I hardly use them, but I have them. I have the amber one, so it's like it's really crazy, and they're kind of like annoying, but I know they're great. So yeah, and I feel like I hope no one feels like they need to like make all these changes at once. It can be like a little overwhelming. It took me to month 8 of carnivore to order these glasses. So yeah, I mean, just, you know, do the best we can without feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah. And just, so those of you that have joined us, thank you so much. And just start. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just go to your freezer, your refrigerator tomorrow morning and eat some meat and eggs, maybe a little bit of cheese. Like, it really doesn't have to be complicated. You can start tomorrow with the food you have in your house. Everybody's got tuna fish or sardines in the cabinet. You know, I mean, even if you don't have a lot of food in your house right now, it's totally doable even tomorrow without saying, I got to prep first. I got to make a grocery list. I got a food prep for the week. I mean, it's totally doable. So don't let those things stop you. Message any one of us and we will help you figure out what you need to do to start like right now. If you haven't had dinner yet, you can start right now. That's what I think.
Can you tell we're passionate?
I know.
Yeah, no excuses.
Yeah. No excuses.
That's right. No excuses. If we can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us, guys. Guys, thank you. And we should do another one.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't get to a lot of questions. We should absolutely.
There were several other questions in the box, but definitely let's do this. Let's do this again for sure. I think it strikes a nerve because people sit down with an entire bag of Lay's potato chips and don't think there's a problem with it. It's absolutely a problem. Yeah.
Agree. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye. Bye.